woman who how no longer explains herself. The moment you stop explaining yourself, people start revealing themselves. Some will respect you. Some will become uncomfortable. Some will suddenly call you selfish. And some will disappear. Let them. You have spent too long confusing peace with obedience. You called it kindness. You called it patience. You called it being understanding. But sometimes it was fear. Fear of disappointing someone. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being called difficult. Fear of becoming the woman nobody could control. So you said yes. You answered every message. You accepted every invitation. You listened to every problem. You absorbed every complaint. You forgave every careless remark. You stayed when leaving felt healthier. You smiled when something inside you went quiet. And then you wondered why you felt exhausted. The answer was not complicated. You had no door. Everyone had access. Your time was available. Your attention was available. Your emotional energy was available. Your forgiveness was available. Your silence was available. Even your peace was available. And people learned that. Not because everyone was cruel, because people learn patterns. They learn what you tolerate. They learn what you repeat. They learn what your words actually mean. If you say no, then immediately apologize, people notice. If you say you're busy, then rearrange everything, people notice. If you threaten to leave, then stay, people notice. If you complain about disrespect, then accept it again, people notice. Your behavior teaches people how to treat you. That truth can feel uncomfortable, but it is also incredibly freeing, because you can change the lesson. You don't need to become cold. You don't need to become aggressive. You don't need to stop caring. You need a line, a quiet line, a clear line, a line you will actually defend. That is a boundary. And a real boundary changes more than other people's behavior. It changes your relationship with yourself. Chapter I, the life you built around other people. There is a particular kind of exhaustion nobody sees. It doesn't always look like exhaustion. You still go to work. You still answer messages. You still smile. You still make plans. You still help people. From the outside, everything looks normal. Inside, something feels crowded. You wake up already responsible for everyone. Your phone lights up. Someone needs something. Someone wants an answer. Someone has a problem. Someone wants reassurance. Someone wants your attention. And before you've even gotten out of bed, you're already giving yourself away. You haven't asked what you need. You haven't noticed your own mood. You haven't taken a breath. You've simply responded. This becomes a lifestyle. And lifestyles become identities. You start thinking, I'm just a helpful person. I'm just sensitive. I don't like conflict. I'm easygoing. I don't want to hurt people. I can handle it. These statements can sound beautiful, but sometimes they hide something painful. You may have learned that being needed creates safety. People praise you when you're useful. They appreciate you when you're available. They call you wonderful when you solve their problems. So you become indispensable. You become the person everyone calls, the reliable one, the understanding one, the one who never makes trouble, the one who always says, it's okay. But eventually, it's okay stops being true. You are not okay. You're simply avoiding the consequences of honesty. That is where resentment begins. Resentment rarely appears suddenly. It accumulates. One small irritation, then another, then another. You don't speak, you swallow it. Someone crosses a line, you laugh. Someone asks too much, you agree. Someone speaks disrespectfully, you stay quiet. Someone cancels on you repeatedly, you forgive them. Each moment seems too small to address, so you don't. Then one day, something tiny breaks you. A forgotten message, a careless comment, a late arrival, a request you normally accept. Suddenly you're furious. The other person may not understand. Why are you so upset? And you may not understand either. But your anger isn't about that one moment. It's carrying years. Years of swallowed sentences. Years of unspoken needs. Years of choosing peace over honesty. But that wasn't peace. It was delayed conflict. There is a difference. Real peace can survive honesty. Fake peace depends on silence. If everything remains peaceful, only when you stay quiet. That's not peace, that's compliance. You don't have to live like that. The first boundary begins with recognition. Notice where your body says no. Your body often speaks before your mouth does. Your stomach tightens. Your shoulders rise. Your breathing changes. You suddenly feel tired. You dread seeing someone's name. You rehearse conversations before having them. You feel relief when plans get canceled. You feel guilty when someone asks for something. These signals deserve attention. They don't automatically mean someone is wrong, but they tell you something. Something about the situation matters. Maybe you're overextended. Maybe you're being pressured. Maybe you're afraid. Maybe you're simply tired. The point isn't to obey every feeling. The point is to listen. A boundary doesn't begin with anger. It begins with awareness. You ask, what is actually bothering me? Be specific, not, everyone takes advantage of me. Ask, which behavior am I accepting? That question gives you power. Maybe it's constant interruptions. Maybe it's unwanted advice. Maybe it's disrespectful jokes. Maybe it's emotional dumping. Maybe it's demands for immediate responses. Maybe it's someone repeatedly changing plans. Maybe it's pressure around your private life. Maybe it's being expected to fix everything. The behavior matters. Once you identify it, you can address it without attacking someone's entire character. You don't need, you're always selfish. You need, I can't keep doing this. That's a completely different conversation. One attacks identity. The other establishes a limit. Healthy boundaries describe your behavior. They don't attempt to control someone else's mind. You cannot command another person. You must respect me. But you can decide, if you speak to me disrespectfully, I'll leave. That is different. You cannot command. You must stop criticizing me. You can say, I won't stay in conversations that become insulting. You cannot command. You must stop calling me late. You can decide, I don't answer calls after a certain hour. You cannot command. You need to understand my feelings. You can decide, I'll explain once, then I won't keep arguing. The boundary is about your actions. That makes it enforceable. And enforceability is important. A boundary without action becomes a request. A request can be ignored. A boundary has consequences, not punishment. Consequences. If someone repeatedly crosses your line, access changes. Maybe the conversation ends. Maybe the visit becomes shorter. Maybe you stop sharing certain information. Maybe you stop doing favors. Maybe you create distance. Maybe you leave. That isn't revenge. It's alignment. Your behavior matches your stated values. This is where people often struggle. They want boundaries without discomfort. That isn't realistic. A boundary may create discomfort, especially at first. You may feel guilty. Your heart may race. Your voice may shake. You may wonder whether you're being unfair. You may want to take it back. That doesn't automatically mean you made the wrong choice. It may simply mean the choice is unfamiliar. Think about a woman who has spent years saying yes. Her first no will feel enormous, even if it's reasonable. Her second no may still feel strange. Her 10th no begins feeling normal. Repetition changes emotional associations. You teach your nervous system, I can disappoint someone and survive. That's a profound lesson, because many people aren't afraid of saying no. They're afraid of what no might cause. Anger, rejection, withdrawal, criticism, silence, loss. So they choose temporary discomfort instead. They say yes, then they pay the price privately. But consider the long-term cost. What happens when you repeatedly say yes? People continue asking. You become overloaded. You become resentful. Your relationships become dishonest. Your generosity becomes obligation. Your kindness becomes performance. And eventually, you may explode. That explosion can hurt everyone, including you. A calm boundary earlier is often kinder than resentment later. This is why saying no can be an act of respect. Respect for your time, respect for your energy, respect for the relationship, respect for reality. Because an honest no gives another person accurate information. A fake yes gives them false information, and false information creates unstable relationships. Imagine someone asks, "Can you help me this weekend?" You don't want to. You have plans, you are tired, you need rest, but you say sure. Now you're resentful. They believe you genuinely wanted to help. Both of you are operating on different realities. Instead, I can't this weekend. That's honest. They may be disappointed. That's okay. Disappointment isn't harm. Someone can be disappointed by your boundary. They can still respect it. This distinction is crucial. You are not responsible for preventing every disappointment. If you take that responsibility, you become impossible to live with. For yourself. Because life contains disappointment. People hear no, plans change, needs conflict, priorities differ. Healthy relationships survive these things. Unhealthy relationships demand constant accommodation. So stop measuring your boundaries by reactions. Measure them by fairness. Ask, was I clear? Was I respectful? Was I honest? Was I reasonable? If yes, their emotional reaction belongs to them. You don't need to manage it. Chapter 2. The power of a quiet no. There is a difference between a weak no and a grounded no. A weak no sounds like this. I'm really sorry. I wish I could. Maybe another time. I feel terrible. Are you sure you won't be upset? A grounded no sounds different. No, I can't. No, that doesn't work for me. I won't be able to do that. I'm not comfortable with that. I've decided not to. Notice something. There is no aggression. There is no performance. There is no courtroom. Just clarity. This is one of the most beautiful things about mature boundaries. They become boring, and boring is good. You don't need dramatic speeches. You don't need emotional music. You don't need a perfect explanation. You simply state your position, then you stop talking. The silence afterward may feel uncomfortable. Let it. Silence is not something you have to repair. This is especially difficult for people who over-explain. You say no, then silence appears. Your mind panics. You think they're waiting for a reason. So you provide one, then they challenge it. You provide another, then they challenge that. Suddenly, your boundary has become a negotiation. You are arguing for permission. Don't. You don't need to convince someone that your limit is legitimate. You need to communicate it. That's all. There is a powerful sentence worth remembering. I understand, but my answer is still no. It works because it acknowledges without surrendering. Someone says, but I really need you. You can say, I understand, I still can't, but you're the only person who can help. I understand, I still can't. Why are you being difficult? I'm not available for this. Repeat, don't escalate, don't insult, don't defend your entire life. Repeat. This technique feels almost too simple. That's why it works. You stop giving the other person new material. Every additional explanation becomes another opening. You said, I can't because I'm tired. They say, you can rest afterward. You say, I've been working too much. They say, you'll have Sunday. You say, I just need some space. They say, you've been distant lately. Now you're defending your emotional state. Instead, I can't. The conversation has nowhere to go. This doesn't mean every situation deserves a cold response. Context matters. If someone you love asks for help during an emergency, you may choose differently. Boundaries aren't rigid walls, they're conscious choices. You can make exceptions. The important part is that the exception is yours. Not forced, not guilt-driven, not fear-driven. Choice is the foundation. If you help someone because you genuinely choose to help, that's generosity. If you help because you're terrified they'll leave, that's dependency. The action may look identical. The internal reality is completely different. This is why boundaries are deeply connected to emotional independence. You become capable of tolerating another person's disappointment. That's a form of strength. Someone can be unhappy with you, and you can remain steady. Someone can misunderstand you, and you can remain steady. Someone can criticize you, and you can remain steady. Someone can leave, and you can remain steady. Not because you don't care, because you know that your worth isn't decided by every reaction. This is difficult. Humans naturally seek belonging. We want approval. We want connection. We want to be liked. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem begins when approval becomes the price of authenticity. You start asking, will they like me if I say no? Will they stay if I disagree? Will they think I'm selfish? Will they still love me? These questions can control your entire life, and eventually, you aren't choosing anymore. You're managing reactions. That's exhausting. You monitor people's moods. You anticipate their needs. You soften every sentence. You apologize before anyone is angry. You explain yourself before anyone asks. You become emotionally hypervigilant. And because you are constantly watching everyone else, you stop watching yourself. You lose contact with your own preferences. Someone asks, what do you want? You don't know. Where do you want to go? Whatever you want, What do you think? I'm fine either way. This can look flexible, sometimes it is, but sometimes you've become disconnected from your own voice. Boundaries help rebuild that voice. Start with small things. What do you actually want for dinner? What time do you want to sleep? Do you want to attend that event? Do you want to answer that message? Do you want to discuss that topic? Do you want to lend that item? Do you want to share that information? Practice having preferences. Preferences become decisions. Decisions become boundaries. Boundaries become identity. And identity becomes stability. You begin knowing yourself. That makes you harder to manipulate. Not because you're suspicious, because you're clear. Manipulation often depends on confusion. If you don't know what you want, someone else can define it. If you don't know your limits, someone else can set them. If you don't know your values, someone else can sell you theirs. Clarity is protection, and this is where boundaries become philosophical. They aren't merely social skills. They're statements about what you value. When you say, I don't answer work messages during the evening, you're saying your personal life matters. When you say, I won't participate in gossip, you're saying integrity matters. When you say, I need time before making that decision, you're saying thoughtful choices matter. When you say, I won't stay where I'm insulted, you're saying dignity matters. Every boundary is a vote for the kind of life you want. And eventually, your life reflects those votes. Chapter 3. When people test the new you, the first boundary is rarely the hardest. The hardest part comes afterward. Someone tests it. You said you wouldn't answer late. They call anyway. You said you won't discuss your private life. They ask again. You said you won't tolerate insults. They make another joke. Now what? This is where many people retreat. They established the boundary. Then they abandoned it. Why? Because enforcement creates tension. The other person knows exactly where the line is. Now they are checking whether it matters. This doesn't always mean manipulation. Sometimes people simply need time to adjust. If you've always answered immediately, they may call again. If you've always agreed, they may ask again. If you've always accepted disrespect, they may repeat the behavior. They have old information. You need to provide new information. Calmly, consistently. If you don't answer late, don't answer. If the topic is private, don't discuss it. If the conversation becomes disrespectful, end it. The action teaches more than another explanation. This is where consistency becomes powerful. One boundary creates confusion. Repeated boundaries create clarity. Eventually, people understand, oh, she means it. That's when respect begins. Not when everyone agrees. When everyone understands that your decisions have consequences. This is why boundaries should be enforceable. Don't create threats you won't carry out. Don't say, if you ever do that again, I'll never speak to you, unless you truly mean it. Don't say, I'm done with you, unless you're prepared to leave. Don't create dramatic consequences during anger. Choose consequences you can calmly maintain. Maybe you leave the room. Maybe you end the call. Maybe you stop sharing personal information. Maybe you reduce contact. Maybe you change the arrangement. Maybe you walk away. Small consequences are often enough. You don't need to destroy a relationship to protect a boundary. Sometimes distance is enough. Sometimes a conversation is enough. Sometimes clarification is enough. And sometimes, yes, the relationship cannot survive your boundaries. That can be painful. But ask yourself why. If a relationship only works when you have no limits, what was holding it together? Your authenticity or your compliance? That's a painful distinction, but it matters. There are people who love the version of you that never says no. They love your availability. They love your flexibility. They love how quickly you solve problems. They love how easily you forgive. When you change, they may say, you're not the same. Maybe they're right. You're not. You're clearer. You're more honest. You're less afraid. And sometimes growth looks like becoming unfamiliar to people who benefited from your old patterns. Don't panic when that happens. Growth often changes social dynamics. Your old identity had a role. Maybe you were the fixer, the listener, the peacemaker, the responsible one, the endlessly patient one. When you stop performing that role, people may resist. They may ask, what's wrong with you? Nothing. You're simply no longer playing the same part. This can be difficult within families. Family systems are powerful. Everyone knows the old version of everyone else. If you suddenly become more assertive, the family may resist. They may laugh. They may minimize. They may say, "You're too sensitive. You've changed." Who taught you this? We've always done it this way. Remember, tradition isn't automatically justification. History doesn't create entitlement. Being family doesn't mean unlimited access. Love and boundaries can coexist. You can love someone deeply and refuse their behavior. You can care about your family and protect your privacy. You can remain connected and limit certain conversations. You can forgive and still maintain distance. Forgiveness does not require renewed access. That's an important distinction. Forgiving someone doesn't mean handing them the same key. You can release anger and keep the door locked. This isn't bitterness, it's discernment. Discernment asks, has the pattern changed? Not. Did they apologize? Words matter. Patterns matter more. Someone can apologize beautifully. Then repeat the behavior. Watch the pattern. A genuine apology usually creates changed behavior, not perfection change. That is enough. Chapter 4. The guilt after no there is another enemy. It doesn't come from other people. It comes from inside. Guilt. You say no, then guilt arrives. It sits beside you. You make coffee. You stare at the cup. You replay the conversation. Maybe you were too harsh. Maybe you should have helped. Maybe you hurt them. Maybe you should send another message. This is where you need emotional discipline. Ask, did I do something wrong? Not do they feel bad? Those are different questions. Someone can feel bad without you doing something wrong. Someone can feel disappointed without you being cruel. Someone can dislike your choice without your choice being unethical. Emotions are not moral verdicts. Remember that. A person crying doesn't automatically mean you're wrong. A person becoming angry doesn't automatically mean you're wrong. A person accusing you doesn't automatically mean you're wrong. Evaluate behavior. Was your boundary reasonable? Was your communication respectful? Did you lie? Did you manipulate? Did you intentionally hurt them? Did you break a promise? If yes, repair what you can. If no, don't manufacture guilt. This is where Stoic thinking becomes practical. You focus on what belongs to you, your words, your behavior, your intentions, your decisions. You cannot control someone else's emotional response. That belongs to them. They have their own interpretation, their own history, their own expectations, their own feelings. You cannot carry all of that. You can care without carrying. That's an important distinction. Imagine someone asks you to attend an event. You decline. They say, "I thought you cared about me." Now the request has become emotional pressure. You can respond, "I do care about you. I still can't attend." Notice the difference. You don't attack their feeling. You don't surrender your boundary. You acknowledge both realities. Their feelings are real. Your limit is real. Both can exist. That is maturity. You don't have to choose between compassion and self-respect. You can have both. The problem is when compassion always means self-sacrifice. That isn't sustainable. A person who constantly empties herself eventually has nothing left. Then everyone suffers. You become irritable. You become distant. You become resentful. You stop enjoying giving. You begin keeping score. "I did this for you. I've always been there. You never do anything for me." This is often a sign you are giving beyond your capacity and secretly hoping someone will notice. Don't make people guess. Set the limit earlier. Say, "I can help for 30 minutes. Not sure, I'll handle everything." Say, "I can listen tonight." Not "call me anytime." Say, "I can lend this once." Not "take whatever you need." Specific boundaries prevent resentment. They create accurate expectations, and accurate expectations make relationships easier. Chapter V. The difference between boundaries and walls. There is a danger in learning boundaries. You can overcorrect. You can become rigid. You can turn every inconvenience into disrespect. You can start treating every disagreement as a violation. That's not strength. That's defensiveness. A wall says, "Nobody gets close." A boundary says, "You can come close, but there are limits." A wall rejects intimacy. A boundary protects intimacy. This distinction matters. You don't need to become emotionally unavailable. You don't need to stop trusting people. You don't need to assume everyone wants something from you. You need discernment. A healthy boundary has flexibility. If your friend is late once, that doesn't necessarily mean disrespect. If someone forgets something, that doesn't automatically mean they don't care. If someone disagrees with you, that isn't a boundary violation. If someone feels disappointed, that's not necessarily manipulation. You need context. Look at patterns, look at intent, look at frequency, look at repair. One mistake is not a personality. One awkward conversation isn't abuse. One disagreement isn't betrayal. Boundaries become unhealthy when they are used to punish normal human behavior. You don't control people through boundaries. You protect yourself through them. That means sometimes the answer is patience. Sometimes it's conversation. Sometimes it's forgiveness. Sometimes it's distance. Wisdom lies in knowing which one fits. This is why boundaries require emotional regulation. If you are furious, wait. If you're terrified, breathe. If you're hurt, give yourself time. Don't create permanent rules from temporary emotions. The boundary should come from clarity, not revenge. A calm boundary is usually stronger than an angry one. Anger says, "How dare you?" Clarity says, "I won't accept this." The second is harder to manipulate because it doesn't need emotional fuel. You can say it once, then act. Chapter 6. Stop. Managing. Opinion 1 of the deepest boundaries is invisible. It's the boundary between your identity and other people's opinions. This one can take years to build because approval feels good, praise feels good, being understood feels good, being chosen feels good. But if your emotional stability depends on these things, you become vulnerable. Someone compliments you, you feel valuable. Someone criticizes you, you feel worthless. Someone chooses you, you feel secure. Someone rejects you, you question yourself. Your identity becomes a weather system. It changes with other people's moods. That is exhausting. You need an internal reference point. Ask, what do I think of my behavior? Not, what do they think of me? Those questions aren't identical. Someone may dislike your boundary, but you may respect yourself for keeping it. Someone may criticize your decision, but you may know it was necessary. Someone may misunderstand your intentions, but you may know you acted honestly. This is where self-respect becomes more important than approval. Not because approval doesn't matter, because it cannot be your foundation. You cannot control everyone's interpretation. Even the kindest person is misunderstood. Even the most honest person gets criticized. Even the most generous person disappoints someone. Trying to avoid all negative opinions is impossible. So stop making it the goal. Your goal is integrity. Be clear, be respectful, be fair. Then let people think. They are allowed. You don't have to chase them down. You don't have to correct every misunderstanding. You don't have to defend every decision. Sometimes silence is enough. This is especially powerful online. Someone leaves a cruel comment. Your first instinct is to respond. You type, delete, type again. You imagine the perfect answer. Stop. Not every opinion deserves your nervous system. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. Some people aren't asking questions. They're asking for access. Access to your attention. Don't give it automatically. Your attention is one of your most valuable resources. Treat it that way. Chapter 7. The boundary of your time is where boundaries become very concrete. Every yes spends time, and time cannot be refunded. You can earn more money, you can replace objects, you can repair mistakes. You cannot recover yesterday afternoon. That makes your calendar a statement of values. Look at where your hours go. Not what you say matters. What actually receives your time. That tells you something. Maybe you spend hours answering messages. Maybe you constantly rescue other people. Maybe you attend things you don't enjoy. Maybe you allow meetings to expand endlessly. Maybe you keep making yourself available. Then you complain. I don't have time for myself. Maybe you don't need more time. Maybe you need fewer automatic yeses. This is not about becoming selfish. It's about becoming intentional. You can choose, I'll answer messages after work. I don't take calls during dinner. I need one evening alone each week. I don't schedule back-to-back commitments. I need advance notice. These are boundaries around time. They create breathing room, and breathing room changes your nervous system. You stop feeling constantly chased. You can finish one thing, then another. You can rest without guilt. You can enjoy your own company. You can think. Rest itself can require boundaries. Some people feel guilty resting. They believe availability equals value. It doesn't. You are not valuable because you are exhausted. You are not more worthy because you're needed constantly. Your life isn't a customer service department. You don't have to be open 24 hours. Rest is part of responsible living. A tired person makes different decisions. A depleted person tolerates things they normally wouldn't. A person with no space becomes reactive. Protecting rest protects judgment. That's a boundary worth keeping. Chapter 8. The boundary. Around your emotional energy, some people don't ask for your time. They ask for your emotional energy. They call when they're upset. They tell you every crisis. They expect you to regulate them. You become their therapist, their emergency contact, their emotional dumping ground. Again, helping isn't wrong, but unlimited access is unsustainable. You can say, I care about you, but I can't talk tonight. Or I can listen for a few minutes. Or I don't have the capacity for this conversation right now. That's not abandonment. It's honesty. You cannot pour from an empty cup forever. And emotional support should not become one-sided. Healthy friendship contains reciprocity. Sometimes you carry them. Sometimes they carry you. Sometimes both people simply sit together. No fixing required. But if one person constantly consumes and never considers your state, something is wrong. You don't need to diagnose them. You simply need to adjust access. Maybe you stop answering immediately. Maybe you shorten calls. Maybe you redirect them toward other support. Maybe you explain your limits. Again, calm. No accusation required. I can't be available for this every night. That's enough. You are allowed to have capacity limits. Your compassion doesn't need to be infinite. Chapter. When the boundary is with yourself. Some of the most important boundaries are internal. You need boundaries around your own behavior. For example, I won't chase someone who repeatedly ignores me. I won't beg for clarity. I won't make decisions while furious. I won't send messages just to relieve anxiety. I won't keep checking someone's profile. I won't sacrifice sleep to prove availability. I won't gossip about people I claim to respect. I won't promise what I cannot deliver. These boundaries protect your character, because self-respect isn't only about what others do. It's about what you allow yourself to become. Imagine you are upset. You want to send the message, the long message, the message explaining everything. You want them to understand. You want them to regret it. You want closure. Pause. Ask, what outcome am I actually seeking? If the answer is, I want them to feel guilty, don't send it. If the answer is, I want them to finally choose me, don't send it. If the answer is, I want to control their reaction, don't send it. You cannot control their reaction, but you can control your dignity. Sometimes the strongest boundary is no message, no explanation, no final speech, just distance. This doesn't mean avoiding necessary conversations. It means knowing when conversation is useful and when it is simply emotional bargaining. There is a huge difference. A necessary conversation seeks clarity. Emotional bargaining seeks a particular response. Learn to recognize the difference. Chapter X. The people respect the new you. When your boundaries become consistent, something interesting happens. You start seeing people differently. Some become closer. Why? Because clarity makes trust easier. They know where you stand. They don't have to guess. They know your yes means yes. They know your no means no. They know you won't secretly resent them. They know you will speak when something matters. That is healthy. A relationship with no boundaries can actually be less secure. Everyone is guessing. Everyone is suppressing. Everyone is hoping. Nobody says what they need. Eventually, something explodes. Boundaries reduce that uncertainty. They create structure, and structure can create safety. Think about healthy friendships. You can say, I'm tired. They don't take it personally. You can say, I don't want to go. They don't question your love. You can disagree. The friendship survives. You can need space. They give it. You can make a mistake. You repair it. This is what respect looks like. Not constant agreement, room for individuality. The strongest relationships aren't those where nobody says no. They're those where no doesn't threaten the relationship. That's a beautiful standard, because it means I can be myself here, and you can offer the same. When someone says no to you, don't automatically take it personally. Respect their boundary. That is how you create mutual respect. Boundaries become healthier when they go both ways. You don't demand access to people. You don't expect immediate replies. You don't punish distance. You don't guilt people into helping. You don't treat someone's privacy a rejection. You don't confuse closeness with ownership. That is emotional maturity. Chapter 11. When people call you selfish, this will happen, especially when you're changing. Someone may call you selfish. Don't panic. The word itself isn't proof. Ask what you actually did. Did you neglect a genuine responsibility? Did you refuse reasonable reciprocity? Did you hurt someone unnecessarily? Or did you simply stop overgiving? Those are very different. Selfishness means disregarding others. A boundary means considering yourself too. There is a difference. You can care about others without erasing yourself. You can give without giving everything. You can compromise without surrendering. You can love without obeying. You can support without rescuing. That is balance. Sometimes people call boundaries selfish because your behavior benefited them before. That's uncomfortable, but their convenience isn't your obligation. If someone says, "You used to always do this," you can respond, "Yes, I've changed what I can commit to." No hostility, no shame. People are allowed to remember the old you. You are allowed to become someone new. Chapter 12. The woman who can walk away. There is a particular power in knowing you can leave. Not because you want to leave, because you know you can. You don't need to threaten. You don't need to announce it. You simply know. If the environment becomes disrespectful, you can go. If the relationship becomes destructive, you can create distance. If the conversation becomes abusive, you can end it. If the arrangement no longer works, you can change it. This knowledge changes your posture. You stop negotiating from desperation. You stop accepting everything because you're afraid of losing it. You become capable of choosing, and choice creates dignity. A person who believes they have no alternatives is easy to pressure. A person who knows they can walk away is harder to manipulate. This doesn't mean walking away from every difficult situation. Some situations deserve effort. Some relationships deserve repair. Some problems require patience. But you approach them differently. You stay because you choose, not because you believe you have no choice. That distinction matters. Chapter 13. The beauty of being misunderstood. There will be moments when someone misunderstands you. You will want to correct them. Sometimes you should. Sometimes you shouldn't. Not every misunderstanding requires a defense. You can explain yourself once, then stop. There is a point where explanation becomes begging. Begging to be seen. Begging to be approved. Begging to be understood. You don't need that. You know your intentions. You know your behavior. You know what you meant. If you made a mistake, own it. If you didn't, let the misunderstanding exist. People are allowed to have incomplete versions of you. You don't have to manage every story. Your life isn't a public relations campaign. This is especially freeing for women who were taught to be agreeable. You don't need everyone to describe you as nice. You need to know you were fair. Nice can be manipulated. Fair is stronger. Nice may avoid saying no. Fair says no when necessary. Nice may hide discomfort. Fair communicates it. Nice may forgive everything. Fair recognizes patterns. Choose fairness over the appearance of niceness. That doesn't make you harsh, it makes you honest. Chapter 14. The silence after the boundary. There is a moment after you say something difficult. Silence. The other person looks at you. You hear your own breathing. Maybe the room feels colder. Maybe your heart is beating faster. This is the moment when old habits try to return. You want to soften. You want to laugh. You want to say, "I didn't mean it like that." Don't automatically. Stay. Let the sentence exist. Let your boundary occupy the room. You don't need to rescue everyone from discomfort. They can process it. You can process it. The silence can remain. This is one of the most important practices. Don't immediately undo yourself. You said, "I need some time." Then give yourself time. You said, "I won't discuss this." Then don't discuss it. You said, "I can't help tonight." Then don't help tonight. Your consistency teaches your mind, my words matter. That is self-trust. And self-trust is more important than looking confident. Because sometimes you will feel afraid. You can still keep the boundary. Courage isn't the absence of shaking. It's staying aligned while shaking. Chapter of 15 Boundaries and Self-Respect. Self-respect can sound abstract. Boundaries make it concrete. Every time you protect something important, you communicate. This matters. Your time matters. Your sleep matters. Your privacy matters. Your body matters. Your attention matters. Your relationships matter. Your values matter. Your peace matters. And when you consistently act according to those values, something changes. You stop needing constant external validation. You know what you're willing to accept. You know what you're not. You become calmer. Not because life becomes easier, because your decisions become clearer. Clarity reduces internal conflict. You no longer say yes while wishing you'd said no. You no longer promise while hoping someone cancels. You no longer stay while planning your escape. You become honest earlier. That is a huge improvement in life quality. Early honesty prevents late resentment. Chapter 16. The new relationship with guilt. Don't expect guilt to disappear immediately. Instead, learn to interpret it differently. When guilt appears, ask, did I violate my values? If yes, repair. If no, breathe. Maybe you simply disappointed someone. That's allowed. Maybe someone isn't happy. That's allowed. Maybe you chose yourself. That's allowed. Guilt doesn't always mean, I did something wrong. Sometimes it means, I did something unfamiliar. This is a powerful distinction. A woman who always overgives will feel guilty when she gives less. A woman who always explains will feel guilty when she stops. A woman who always forgives immediately may feel guilty when she needs distance. That guilt is not necessarily moral guidance. It may be withdrawal from an old habit. Let it pass. You don't have to obey it. Feel it, notice it, continue. Over time, it becomes quieter. Chapter 17. The boundary that makes love healthier. There is a misconception that boundaries reduce intimacy. Often, they create it. Without boundaries, people perform. They say what the other person wants. They hide resentment. They suppress preferences. They pretend everything is fine. That creates distance. Honesty creates a different kind of closeness. You can say, I'm upset. You can say, I need space. You can say, I disagree. You can say, I don't want that. You can say, I need more from this relationship. These statements create reality. Reality can be worked with. Pretending cannot. A healthy relationship doesn't require two people to become one person. It requires two whole people choosing each other. That means individuality, privacy, time apart, different opinions, different needs, different rhythms. Boundaries protect those differences. And when differences are safe, intimacy becomes deeper. You don't have to disappear into someone else. You can remain yourself. Chapter 18. The boundary that protects your future. Every yes has a hidden cost. Sometimes the cost is time, sometimes energy, sometimes attention, sometimes opportunity. When you say yes to everything, you are saying no somewhere else. Maybe you're saying no to sleep, no to health, no to your work, no to creativity, no to solitude, no to relationships that matter, no to your future. This is why boundaries are not merely defensive. They are strategic. They protect what you're building. If you want to create something meaningful, your attention needs protection. If you want peace, your environment needs protection. If you want healthy relationships, your standards need protection. If you want self-respect, your behavior needs protection. You cannot build a life while constantly reacting to everyone else's priorities. At some point, you have to choose what matters most, then protect it. Not with aggression, with structure. Chapter 19. The moment you stop choosing respect. Here's the strange thing. You cannot force respect. You can only make disrespect expensive, not financially, emotionally, practically. If someone knows they can insult you and still receive unlimited access, there is little reason for change. If someone knows disrespect ends the conversation, the pattern changes. If someone knows you won't chase them after withdrawal, the dynamic changes. If someone knows guilt won't control your decisions, the tactic loses power. You don't need to announce any of this. You simply behave differently, and eventually, people understand. Respect isn't something you demand repeatedly. It's something your consistent behavior communicates. You become predictable. Your standards are predictable. Your responses are predictable. Your no is predictable. That predictability creates clarity, and clarity creates respect. Chapter: the quietest form of power. The strongest boundary may be invisible. It's the moment you decide not to betray yourself. Nobody sees it. Someone asks you to do something. You pause. You know you don't want to. You say no. The conversation continues. Nothing dramatic happens. But inside, something changes. You kept your word. You chose honestly. You didn't abandon yourself. That's power. Not dominance. Not control. Not making someone else feel small. Power is being able to govern yourself. You can regulate your emotions. You can choose your words. You can tolerate disappointment. You can leave when necessary. You can stay when meaningful. You can say yes freely. You can say no freely. That is freedom. And freedom feels different from rebellion. Rebellion still reacts to someone else. Freedom chooses independently. That's the goal. Not to become someone nobody can hurt. You will still be hurt. You will still care. You will still love. You will still disappoint people. You will still make mistakes. The goal is to remain yourself through all of it. Chapter 1:1. The woman who doesn't need to be understood. Eventually, you may reach a quieter place. Someone doesn't understand your decision. You explain once, they still disagree. You shrug, not because you don't care, because you know. You don't need universal agreement. You need alignment. You can live with someone else's misunderstanding. You can live with their disappointment. You can live with their criticism. You can even live with their departure, because you have yourself. That doesn't mean isolation. It means internal stability. You can love people deeply without making them responsible for your identity. You can accept affection without depending on it. You can receive approval without needing it. You can hear criticism without becoming it. You can hear praise without becoming addicted to it. You become harder to move emotionally. Not because you're cold, because you're anchored. What a real boundary sounds like. It sounds ordinary. That's the beauty. I can't make it tonight. I don't want to discuss that. Please don't speak to me that way. I need time to think. No, thank you. That's private. I'm not comfortable with that. I've changed my mind. I won't be able to help. I understand. My answer is still no. There is no drama, no performance, no need to sound powerful. You simply speak, then you act. That is enough. The world doesn't need another person screaming about boundaries. It needs people quietly practicing them. A boundary is strongest when it doesn't need an audience. Chapter 23. The new woman. Maybe she isn't louder. Maybe she isn't tougher. Maybe she isn't colder. Maybe she simply stopped abandoning herself. She still loves. She still helps. She still listens. She still forgives. She still cares. But she chooses. That's the difference. Her yes means something, because her no means something. Her availability means something, because her absence means something. Her words mean something, because her actions match them. She doesn't threaten. She doesn't chase. She doesn't beg. She doesn't explain endlessly. She doesn't need to prove her worth. She knows what she values. She knows what she protects. She knows what she can give. She knows when she needs to leave. And she knows when staying is worth the effort. That is not hardness. That is discernment. Chapter 4. The last. No, there is one final boundary. The boundary between who you were and who you're becoming. The old version of you may still appear. She may want to say yes. She may want to apologize. She may want to fix everything. She may want to keep everyone happy. Don't hate her. She was trying to protect you. She learned what she had to learn. She survived by being agreeable. She survived by staying quiet. She survived by anticipating other people's needs. Thank her, then release her. You don't need to punish the old version. You simply don't need to keep living there. The new version understands something different. Kindness without boundaries becomes depletion. Honesty without courage becomes silence. Love without self-respect becomes dependency. Peace without truth becomes suppression. And strength without compassion becomes hardness. You want balance. You want the middle. A soft heart, a firm spine, a calm mind, a clear voice. That's the woman who doesn't need to dominate anyone. She simply governs herself. Epilogue. Let the line stay where you put it. One day, someone will test you. Maybe tomorrow, maybe tonight. They will ask for more than you want to give. They will expect something you never promised. They will speak in a way you don't accept. They will assume your availability. They will question your decision. And for a second, your old instinct will return. Your stomach will tighten. Your mind will race. You will want to explain. You will want to soften. You will want to keep everyone comfortable. Pause. Take a breath. You don't need to become cruel. You don't need to become cold. You don't need to punish anyone. Just tell the truth. No. Maybe I can't. Maybe that doesn't work for me. Maybe I'm not comfortable with that. Then stop. Let the silence exist. Let them have their feelings. Let yourself have yours. Don't rush to undo your decision. Don't apologize for having a limit. Don't create a 10-minute explanation for a 2-word answer. Your boundary can be quiet. Your boundary can be kind. Your boundary can be firm. Your boundary can be loving. It can even be painful. But it must be real, because every time you keep a boundary, something inside you learns. I can trust myself. I can disappoint someone and survive. I can be misunderstood. I can say no. I can leave. I can stay. I can choose. That is the real beauty of boundaries. They don't merely teach other people where the line is. They teach you where you stand. And once you know where you stand, everything changes. Your relationships change. Your conversations change. Your calendar changes. Your standards change. Your self-talk changes. Even your silence changes. You stop filling every quiet moment with explanations. You stop chasing people who withdraw. You stop begging for understanding. You stop proving your worth. You stop negotiating against yourself. You stop saying yes while hoping someone else says no. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you become calmer. Not because everyone around you became easier, because you became clearer. That clarity becomes peace, real peace. Not the peace of avoiding conflict, the peace of knowing you can handle conflict. Not the peace of keeping everyone happy, the peace of knowing you can survive disappointment. Not the peace of being universally liked, the peace of knowing you respect yourself. And perhaps that's what a boundary really is. Not a wall, not a weapon, not a punishment, a promise. A promise that says, I will not abandon myself to keep someone else comfortable. Keep that promise, quietly, consistently, without needing applause. Because the people who truly belong in your life won't require you to disappear. They won't need your exhaustion as proof of love. They won't need your silence as proof of loyalty. They won't need unlimited access to feel secure. They will meet you at the boundary. They will knock. They will ask. And when you say yes, it will mean something. When you say no, it will mean something. And when you open the door, you'll know why. That is freedom. That is self-respect. That is emotional independence. And that is the quiet power of a woman who finally understands. Her peace is not something other people get to negotiate.